Welcome to another episode of Iconic Freedom, the Formula. We are setting the standard for accountability and responsibility, the ownership of your choices and the consequences for those choices. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for.
Before me, why didn't you tell me the truth?
Because it wasn't time for you to know.
Who decided it wasn't time?
You know who.
I did. Then I think it's time for me to know a few more things.
So do I.
Tell me how.
Recently, I've seen a lot of posts on social media where this question comes up and people will say, what do you call it when someone is faced with the truth but refuses to see it? Now, if I'm enjoying myself, I may decide to respond, and I would say that the only way to see reality is through bringing order into your life. And I know we've talked about this before, but bringing order to your life by using your emotions as signal, not noise. In other words, you use those small indicators from within, your own internal authority, and you use them to navigate your universe. As this process begins, you will find yourself challenged, right, by any indicators of virtue signaling. Essentially, you're making choices to look good in the eyes of others. And if you're protecting your self-interest and your self-image, it will keep you from seeing reality. Bringing health into your life on all levels, including how you move, how you eat, how you sleep, will all impact the path towards better health for yourself. Better cognition, comprehension, all of those things that we've talked about in the past. Everything that impacts your ability to create agility. That rhymes. Write that down. In your life, that will be paramount when you're bringing order to your life. This, I will tell you, personal experience and observation. This is not a process that happens overnight. You can observe it in nature. You see that nothing happens in the blink of an eye. Everything, it starts a trajectory towards something. Even the lightning strike that you see, it didn't just all of a sudden happen. It started from that flashpoint and it created until it became the reality in the moment where it strikes. So for you, right, for you and me, this process does not happen overnight. The ability to self-reflect, to self-evaluate is very important in the process. If you're holding on to your self-image, which is the title of this podcast, it's going to be a challenge for you, for all of your growth and all of the change that you want to make. So you have to start asking yourself some questions, right? As you set your standards, because that's what this podcast is, right? It's about setting your standards and then living by your standards. So what is it in you that drives you to hold on to that self-image? Do you know what your self-image is? Do you know the games you play with yourself? The things that you tell yourself? Do you own them? Who are you trying to impress? What do you think you would lose by letting go of that self-image? What do you think would happen if you trusted yourself and you took the leap? No one can effort this endeavor more than you. Change does take time. You'll make a choice, and then another, and then another. And in the aggregate of your day, your week, your month, your year. You can look back at all of the changes that you've accomplished. If you do nothing, then nothing will change. Being open to reality, seeing reality, is your best hope for personal freedom and personal happiness. Hands down, full stop. Developing your own internal authority will provide you with all of the freedom to decide your life. You can seek information however you wish, but ultimately that decision, any decision, belongs to you. Owning this decision relieves you of being a victim to others or to a situation in your life. Is life happening to you, or is it happening because of you?
Keep going.
I suppose the most obvious question is, how can I trust you?
Bingo. It is a pickle, no doubt about it. Bad news is there's no way if you can really know whether I'm here to help you or not. So it's really up to you. Just have to make up your own damn mind to either accept what I'm going to tell you or reject it. Tandy?
You already know if I'm going to take it?
Wouldn't be much of an oracle if I didn't.
But if you already know, how can I make a choice?
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it. I thought you'd have figured that out by now.
So what's fun about that is we just talked about your own internal authority, which is what the oracle is alluding to. Now, of course, we don't care about the why. We care about the what. What are the decisions that you want to make? What are the outcomes that you are basically looking at, and you are trying to decide what are the possibilities, what are the probabilities of the outcomes from the choice that you make? Much like in the very first clip when, Neo says, well, who made the decision of when to tell me something? And she says, you know who. And he turns and he says, I did. And that is the same for yourself. You use your own internal authority. So the pillars of this change, of course, are going to require for you to do what? The mantra of this podcast, setting your own standards through accountability of your choice and the responsibility of choice. For every decision made, you need to not only own the decision of the choice, but also be able to respond to that choice. Responsibility, that ability to respond. When you begin this journey, when I began this journey, it is challenging. You will find it challenging. Others, they'll find you challenging as you no longer are willing to accept the pedestrian mediocrity that has up until now left you wanting more out of your own existence. You'll come to notice that some people will just fall away as you become more responsible in your life. It's almost as though it's a type of kryptonite, right? Responsibility and accountability are kryptonite to those who seek self-inflicted victimization. They don't want to be confronted or challenged with the question of, well, who made that choice? Those who blame others, they never see the contribution they made in any given situation. So, like the Matrix, you can leave this podcast and you can never think about it again. Or you can tell yourself everything is just fine, but in the quiet of your silence, it will haunt you. It will get louder and louder that you're ignoring the reality of managing your emotions, using them as signal, not noise, letting go of the self-image that you have created for yourself up until now. Because if you are thinking about your image, you're not free. You can only be free of your image when you're no longer thinking about your image and you're simply doing. And that really, I mean, to be honest, that's kind of one of the messages of that movie, The Matrix, and the conversations with the Oracle is you're doing. You're no longer having to let the brain do all of this garbage. You're letting the body lead you. And you're finding your own internal authority in that way. We know that from our podcast that the brain is the dumbest part of us, right? It wants to rationalize and justify and cajole and manipulate everything, thinking that it's going to manage it all. It's going to control what people think. It's going to control what people say, what people do. And the reality is that is not possible, because nature within everything is doing what it needs to do. Right? And you can't control the nature of another person. You can't even control your own nature, to be honest, because the reality is it's already within you. Like the beginning, who decided when it was time? He decided. And the same for you. When do you decide for yourself when it's time to know more? When you're ready. And when do you know you're ready? When you start seeking more information. When you realize things are not the way you want them to be in your life and you want to make a change. Well, the only way that that change is going to happen is for you to endeavor that change. And that's really how it all works. So letting go of that self-image, of building that self-image through virtue signaling and whatever else, are you doing because the body instructs you in a way to do, to get up? You don't have to tell the body to breathe, right? You don't say, body breathe. It just does it. That's the place you want to be at with regard to all of the choices that you're making in life. Yes, you realize you're making choices, and sometimes in a way you're not thinking about the choice, you're just making the choice. But the responsibility and accountability comes in that you say, I own the choice. There's an interesting kind of dynamic that happens, that you become aware that you're making a choice. And you continue to do that so that you can develop in yourself the accountability and the responsibility of the choice. And at some point, you no longer have to think about the choice, because you would never make a choice from your own internal authority. You would never make a choice that didn't have accountability to it, that didn't have your ability to respond. You would just be doing it. Much like you breathing or blinking your eyes. It just happens. And that is the nature of who we are. It just happens. And it's a beautiful moment. So when the question arises, what do you call it when people are faced with the truth and they don't want to pay attention to it, or they don't want to accept it, or whatever? You can call it cognitive dissonance, but I would posit to you that it's about self-image, that they have developed their self-image based on a lie, the lie that they have told themselves because they don't want to see the reality. And you can only see the reality when you let go of self-image and you start becoming accountable and responsible for the choices in your life, till you get to that point where you no longer think about it. You don't need to, because you've moved yourself to a place where it just happens naturally.
Oh, don't worry about it. As soon as you step outside that door, you'll start feeling better. You'll remember you don't believe in any of this fate crap. You're in control of your own life. Remember? Here. Take a cookie. I promise by the time you're done eating it, you'll feel right as rain.
remember that reality will always surface. It will always have its light of day for exposure. If you are able to embrace this ride and you let go of self-image building, you will forge that path of integrity and character. And those are qualities that absolutely nobody can take from you. They belong to you. And we are at the end of another podcast. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and I hope you enjoyed this. Share it with your family and friends. You never know how it might help them in their journey as well. Hit that like button if you would. I would be grateful for that. And we will see each other here next weekend. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for.